There's a level of intelligence that doesn't argue or dominate. It simply observes. And once you start operating from that level, people sense it immediately. They feel watched, even if you say nothing. And to protect themselves, they call that awareness something evil or dark. So what is this type of intelligence? It's called strategic intelligence, but that's too clean, too academic. Let me tell you what it really is. It's the ability to see systems instead of stories, to recognize patterns instead of accepting narratives, to understand incentives instead of believing intentions. Most people look at the world and see what they've been taught to see. A boss who cares about the team, a political candidate who fights for the people, a friend who's always there for you. Someone with strategic intelligence looks at the same situations and asks different questions. What does this person gain? What are the hidden incentives? What happens when those incentives change? And here's where it gets uncomfortable. They're usually right. Think about it. The person who can predict exactly when a friendship will end based on shifting life circumstances. The employee who knows which company initiatives will fail before they launch because they understand the real power dynamics. The individual who can map out social hierarchies in a room within minutes. This isn't cynicism. It's pattern recognition operating at a level most people refuse to access. Because accessing it means giving up something precious, the comforting belief that the world runs on the principles you were taught in kindergarten. Now here's where people get angry. When you operate with strategic intelligence, you stop doing something that society desperately needs you to do. You stop pretending. You stop pretending that people's stated reasons are their real reasons. You stop pretending that social rules exist for the reasons people claim. You stop pretending that fairness, justice, and merit are the primary forces that determine outcomes. And people hate this, not because you're wrong, but because you're right in a way that makes them feel exposed. See, most people need to believe in the official story. They need to believe their boss promotes based on merit, that their partner loves them unconditionally, that their success or failure is purely about their own choices. Strategic intelligence reveals the uncomfortable truth. Everything is a negotiation. Everything has terms. Everything operates on incentives that often have nothing to do with the story people tell themselves. When you point this out, even gently, even by just living according to this understanding, you become dangerous. Because you're essentially saying, the emperor has no clothes, and I can see the puppet strings. And I know this entire system relies on everyone pretending they can't. So they label you cold, calculating, Machiavellian, sociopathic, evil. These words aren't diagnoses, they're defense mechanisms. Now let me teach you something practical, something you can use immediately. This is the framework that separates strategic thinkers from everyone else. I call it the three-layer analysis system. Most people only see layer 1. Strategic intelligence requires you to see all three simultaneously. Layer 1, the surface narrative. This is what people say, the official story, the stated reasons. Your boss says, we're restructuring the team to improve efficiency and create growth opportunities. Your friend says, I'm always here for you, no matter what. A company says, we care deeply about our customers and their experience. Most people stop here. They accept the narrative at face value or reject it entirely as a lie. But both approaches miss the point. The surface narrative isn't meaningless. It tells you what people want you to believe, and more importantly, what they need to believe about themselves. Layer 2, the incentive structure. This is where strategic intelligence begins. You ask, what does this person or organization actually gain or lose based on different outcomes? Your boss's restructuring. Who gains power? Whose budget increases? Who becomes redundant? Look at the org chart 6 months from now and you'll see the real purpose. Your friend's loyalty. What do they get from the friendship? Status, emotional support, access to your network. And critically, what happens to their incentives when those needs change? The company's customer care. How are employees measured? What gets rewarded internally? If customer service reps are measured on call time, not satisfaction, you know the real priority. Here's the key insight. People aren't lying when their actions contradict their words. They genuinely believe their own narrative. But incentives shape behavior far more powerfully than intentions. Watch the incentives, not the intentions. Layer 3, the second-order consequences. This is where it gets powerful. This is where you see what's coming before anyone else does. Layer 3 asks, what happens next? What does this set in motion? What are the downstream effects that nobody's talking about? Your boss's restructuring creates a power vacuum. Layer 3 asks, who will fight to fill it? What alliances will form? Which talented people will leave because they see the writing on the wall? Your friend's loyalty is conditional on shared life circumstances. Layer 3 asks, what happens when they get married? When they move? When their priorities shift? Not if, but when. The company prioritizes metrics over experience. Layer 3 asks, what's the customer lifetime value loss? When does the competitor who actually solves the problem eat their lunch? Here's your exercise. Take any situation you're currently dealing with. Could be work, could be personal, doesn't matter. Write down the surface narrative. What are people saying the situation is about? Then map the incentive structure. What does each player actually gain or lose? What are they measured on? What would they do if they were being purely rational? Finally, project the second-order consequences. If everyone acts according to their incentives, what happens in 3 months, 6 months, a year? You'll be shocked how clearly you can see the future once you do this. Now let me teach you something else, something that will immediately change how you operate. Once you can see all 3 layers, you gain what I call the silence advantage. Here's the rule. The more you see, the less you say. Most people do the opposite. They see something clever, some pattern, some prediction, and they immediately share it. They want credit for being right. They want people to know how smart they are. This is amateur hour. Strategic intelligence means knowing when to speak and when to let others reveal themselves. The silence advantage in action. In a meeting, someone proposes an idea you instantly know will fail because you can see the incentive misalignment at layer 2. Don't immediately explain why it won't work. Ask a simple question instead. How would we measure success for this? Watch them stumble through their own lack of clarity. A colleague is clearly angling for a political move against someone else. You can see it at all 3 layers. Don't warn the target. Instead, position yourself neutrally and watch. The person making the move will either succeed or fail based on their own execution. Your neutrality becomes valuable to whoever wins. Someone asks for your advice on a decision, but you can tell from their tone they've already decided. They want validation, not advice. Don't give them your 3-layer analysis. Give them what they're actually asking for or politely decline to engage. The principle is this. Your strategic intelligence is an asset. Assets appreciate when protected and depreciate when carelessly spent. Every time you show someone how much you see, you teach them to hide from you. Every time you predict an outcome out loud, you give people the opportunity to prove you wrong just to diminish your credibility. Silence isn't weakness. It's information asymmetry working in your favor. Here's something most people never figure out. There's a game being played, and then there's a second-order game being played about who understands the first game. Let me explain. The first-order game is the obvious one. In business, it's revenue, market share, promotions. In social dynamics, it's status, belonging, influence. But there's always a second-order game happening simultaneously. Who recognizes the real rules? Who's playing consciously versus unconsciously? The signaling system. People with strategic intelligence signal to each other. Not obviously, not directly, but they do. Someone says something in a meeting that's superficially agreeable, but contains a subtle acknowledgement of the real power dynamics at play. Someone else catches it, makes brief eye contact, maybe adds one carefully chosen word that shows they understand. This is how alliances form at the highest levels, not through explicit agreements, but through demonstrated understanding of what's actually happening. Your practical lesson: learn to recognize these signals. When someone says something that operates on multiple levels simultaneously, when someone acknowledges an uncomfortable truth while maintaining plausible deniability, when someone phrases something in a way that means one thing to most listeners and something else to those paying attention, they're signaling. The question is, do you recognize it? And more importantly, can you signal back? Here's how you practice. Start paying attention to ambiguity in communication. When someone says something that could be interpreted multiple ways, ask yourself, is this accidental or intentional? What would each interpretation reveal? The people operating with strategic intelligence choose their words to work on multiple levels. They say things that sound agreeable to most people while communicating something entirely different to those who understand. This isn't dishonesty, it's efficiency. Why have 2 separate conversations when you can have them simultaneously? Seeing is not enough. That's the mistake most people make once they reach this level of intelligence. They begin to recognize incentives, patterns, and power dynamics, but they don't know how to carry it socially, emotionally, or internally. So they either over-explain, overreact, or withdraw completely. This is where awareness turns into isolation instead of leverage. The Whisper training bundle exists for this exact moment. It is not theory. It is not motivation. It is training. Training in social intelligence so you know how to move inside groups without exposing how much you see. Training in emotional intelligence so clarity doesn't turn into coldness or reactivity. Training in dark confidence so silence feels grounded, not defensive. Training in internal control so intelligence sharpens you instead of separating you from everyone else. This bundle teaches you how to operate once you understand the 3 layers. How to hold eye contact without signaling threat. How to speak without revealing strategy. How to remain calm when others leak incentives through emotion. How to be present without being readable. You don't become louder, you become heavier, and this is not a temporary program. The Whisper Training Bundle is lifetime access. Every current training, every future release, no expiration, no repetition, no noise. This is not for people who want to look smart. It's for people who already see too much and need structure, control, and composure to move through the world without being labeled, isolated, or misunderstood. The link is in the top comment. But here's the real question, and it's the one that matters. Is strategic intelligence actually immoral? And the answer is, it's a tool. You can use a hammer to build a house or crack a skull. The hammer doesn't care. It's not moral or immoral. It's what you do with it. Strategic intelligence is the same. The difference is this. Most people with average intelligence can afford to be moral in the conventional sense because they're playing a game with training wheels. They follow social rules because those rules are visible to them, and breaking them has obvious immediate consequences. Someone with strategic intelligence sees a more complex game. They see that following certain rules makes you predictable and exploitable. They see that other people break rules constantly while maintaining the appearance of virtue. They see that the system rewards strategic rule breaking while punishing honest rule following. So what do you do with that knowledge? Option 1. You can use strategic intelligence to exploit others, to manipulate systems purely for personal gain while causing unnecessary harm. This is what people fear. And yes, some people do this. Option 2. You can use it to protect yourself from exploitation, to navigate systems effectively, and to help others who are being harmed by those same systems. You can see the game clearly without becoming cruel. The intelligence itself isn't evil, but it does give you more power. And power without wisdom, without principle, without something beyond pure self-interest, that's where things get dark. Here's what they don't tell you about developing this type of intelligence. It's lonely. Once you see the systems, once you understand the incentives, once you can predict the patterns, you can't really go back. You can't unsee it. You'll be in conversations where people are passionately debating something, and you'll see exactly how it's going to play out because you understand the underlying game being played. And you can't say it, because if you do, you're the villain. You'll watch people you care about make predictable mistakes based on false beliefs about how the world works. And you'll have to decide, do I tell them the truth and risk them hating me, or do I let them learn the expensive way? You'll succeed in ways others don't because you see opportunities and dangers they're blind to. And they'll resent you for it, or worse, they'll think you cheated somehow because in their model of reality, that level of success shouldn't be possible through legitimate means. This is the real cost. Not that you become evil, but that you become separate. But here's what I want you to understand. Strategic intelligence should make you more effective, not less human. Yes, you see more than others. Yes, you understand systems and incentives that remain invisible to most people. Yes, this gives you an advantage. But the moment you start believing that this makes you superior, the moment you lose empathy for people operating with less information, the moment you use your intelligence purely for exploitation, that's when they become right about you. Let me leave you with your homework. First, practice the 3-layer analysis on one situation this week. Surface narrative, incentive structure, second-order consequences. Write it down. Check back in 3 months and see how accurate you were. Second, practice the silence advantage. Resist the urge to show how much you see for one full week. Just observe. Notice how much more people reveal when they don't know you're tracking patterns. Third, start recognizing the signals. Pay attention to ambiguity in communication. Notice who's operating on multiple levels. The world runs on strategic intelligence, whether people want to admit it or not. Every major institution, every power structure, every successful organization, it's all operating on these principles behind a facade of simply simpler, more palatable narratives. The only question is whether you're going to understand that reality and navigate it consciously, or whether you're going to remain in the comfortable dark. Most people choose the dark, and that's fine. It's easier there. But if you're still watching this video, you and I both know you're not most people. The question isn't whether you'll develop strategic intelligence. If you're drawn to content like this, you're already developing it. The question is, what will you do with it?